In this edition of SmartBites, Shivaji Raju outlines the shifts in automation in Agile development and what it takes to accomplish this. He is currently the expert architect at Allstate Solutions Private Limited. Automation typically lags behind development. How do I stay in sync in Agile development?
It's a quite interesting challenge to always keep up the pace with the product development. So I would rather start off with some good agile practices. Automation should be part of definition of done. Because a lot of times what happens is you tend to compromise of not doing automation just because you run into some time issues. So it's very critical that it's part of definition of done. Whenever you have tests to be written, so you make sure that they are automated. So that's one of the good practice to be followed. Yeah, the other aspect is there's a need to have better collaboration with the dev. Strategy piece becomes important. There's a concept called Agile Test Pyramid, where traditionally your focus was mostly on the UI, right? So you had a lot of bulky tests which were like thousands, and you ended up spending a lot of time and effort in maintaining them and running them. So this particular practice recommends that you do a reverse pyramid, which means your focus significantly changes, where you do a lot of unit tests. So that means the dev should do a lot of unit tests, and then you build a lot of service-based tests, right? And then you have very minimal UI tests. When I say minimal, an optimal set of UI tests, so that you are aptly covering the presentation layer. I think this approach really helps for you to have a good coverage, and also ensuring that you don't spend a lot of time on your UI test bed maintaining a large pack. So you are rightly distributing between different layers. So the other aspect is the frameworks. So one of the need for Agile is to faster development, right? So you need to churn out your automation scripts at a faster pace. So how do you ensure your frameworks are supporting it, right? So you need to have frameworks which are probably scriptless, where you can build out automation scripts at a faster pace, and then they're lightweight, so that you don't end up maintaining them, right? You don't spend a lot of effort in maintaining them, and pretty much integrates with most of the tool sets in the Agile or DevOps landscape, so that you can build scripts for different test types, and you can publish your results to say Jira or maybe ArtiFactory and all those. The other aspect is continuous testing, right? So you need to ensure that your different test types are automated, right? They're all integrated, and they also integrate to your DevOps pipeline, right? So they also integrate to your development pipelines. So if your dev is creating a build, they are deploying your build to the test server. So your testing pipeline should execute. So that's how you get a faster feedback, right? So one more key aspect that needs to be considered is the development practices, right? So even the development team has to ensure that they adopt some best practices, right? Some examples could be that if they're using service-oriented architecture, right, or API first approach, so that would significantly help the testing team to automate their services upfront. And their DevOps practices also would significantly help us so that the builds are coming in faster. If they are able to automate their unit tests, if they're able to automate the builds, if they're able to automate deployment of their builds into the dev and testing servers, I think that would eventually ensure that the builds are getting released faster, and then we are able to test, and then the feedback cycle would be pretty quick.
Automation has always been about frameworks. What are the considerations for automation framework in Agile development?
One of the key expectation, especially in Agile, is to churn out automation scripts at a faster pace. So we have a very short sprint cycle, maybe 2 weeks, and in some cases 3 weeks. So the frameworks should support building scripts at a faster pace, which means you need to have some type of scriptless solutions, or even if there are custom coded solutions also, you need to have a mechanism where you can churn out scripts at a faster pace. So the other aspect is obviously you need to make sure that you don't have too much of maintenance effort built into the whole solution. And the framework should support integration to different tool sets in the DevOps landscape. And it could be related to the build tools like Maven, right? And then maybe integration to Jira or ArtiFactory. And then in some cases, yes, you need to scale up your testing, right? You want to do parallel testing, maybe run on 10, 15 browsers, or maybe 10 different types of devices. So that is when you need to have integration to cloud-based testing platforms also, right? So the framework should support those. So other than that, it's important from a design per se. You use really good design patterns and some best practices.
What are choices of tool stacks for agile testing?
Yeah, there are lots of tools in the agile and DevOps landscape. So let me just categorize some of these. If you're talking about unit testing, right? So you have JUnit and InUnit type of frameworks that you would use. Then you also have build automation tools. You use Maven and Gradle for automating your builds. Not necessarily dev builds, even when you're creating automation projects. So you use Maven to compile the code and build a project out of it. Other than that, you have deployment tools. So you would want to deploy the build on the test or dev servers. So you'd use a set of tools that are available, both open source and commercial. Then you have test execution tools, right, which most of the QA community is using. You have Selenium, you have UFT, and there are a lot of scripting solutions also coming in. Then when it comes to service automation, there are tools like SoapUI and ReadyAPI, and then there are virtualization tools. If you don't have your endpoint, so you would virtualize the service URL. And similarly, when it comes to database automation or obfuscation, right? So that is where you use virtualization tools. I mean, tools like Delphix would help there. Then, especially in the DevOps piece, where you would want to have a seamless execution, there could be elements of you automating the infrastructure, which means that if you want to provision instances for your execution, right? You want to run your tests on load generators, or you want to run your tests on Selenium nodes. You would provision those instances on the cloud. So if you have to provision those instances, you might be using tools like Ansible and Chef, for building out those type of solutions. Other than that, you have project management tools like Jira, right? Especially when you run your automation scripts, you want to publish results or status back into Jira. Or you could also use tools like ArtiFactory, where you publish your results back. So I would say these are very broadly some different set of tools across different categories for for the agile space.
What are skills expected of agile automation test folks?
In this context, you would have heard about roles like SDET or test engineer, right, in the agile space. So it is no more about manual testing or even just doing UA automation. So the need or the expectation is that the engineer can play a role in other types of testing also, right? I mean, he can automate not necessarily only the UI, he can automate services, or he could also play a role in building out NFR non-functional scripts related to performance and all. So the breadth of skills has definitely increased when it comes to testing, when you compare traditionally in the waterfall approaches. Yeah, and then coming back to the tools, right? It's no more about just using one tool, right? So the need is you need to pick up different types of tools for different types of tests that you would perform. So there is a need for mindset change where you are flexible enough to learn new technologies, trends, tools, right? And if you look at the industry trends, right? I mean, every year, every now and then you get a new tool, new technology. So the need of the hour is that you have that mindset to really go pick a language, right? If there's a new tool set that is coming in the market or for a particular technology, you should be able to grasp it. I mean, even if you compare with the development world, right? So there is a term called full stack developer, right? What does a full stack developer do? He would build code on the UI. He's also comfortable developing services, and he plays a role in also building databases, right? Working on the databases. So similarly, if I have to relate this to the testing world, right? If you say full stack tester, so he should cover the breadth of the tools and languages. So I definitely feel there is a need for mindset change, where you need to pick up tools and languages that do come in, because when you change products, right, if you are aligned to a different product, it is not necessary that you're going to use the same tool or technology. The technology needs will change, and then obviously some of the testing needs might also change. So what is required is flexibility and mindset to adapt to those changes.